Hello there, a very warm welcome to the show and a good morning to you for wherever you're watching us from. This is Smart 24 TV and we drive your business. My name is Anthony and I am your host for this particular segment called Financial Markets. These are your daily analysis, of course, for the different markets here in East Africa as well as in Africa, where we get to get you up to speed with what happened yesterday and look ahead, of course, in the new day as you plan your day of investment, as you plan how you're going to be able to, have changes in your portfolio here and there, and make sure you make the right decisions that are informed. And now, if you are joining us for the first time, it's very important for you to remember that the show is proudly brought to you by OTEX East Africa. OTEX East Africa is saying more money, no hustle, and Zabu, my money, my future. Zabu is an initiative that was, of course, a brainchild of OTEX East Africa, which is a trading platform that originally is from South Africa. Now, these give you access to the treasury bond markets here in Uganda, in Kenya, and in Tanzania as well. And with limited, of course, intermediaries, you can be able to access the market using your phone by simply dialing *292#. OTEX East Africa is saying you can do something new. If you only get to your phone and simply dial *292#, and with as little as 15,000 on your phone, start your journey of investment. OTEX is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda and opens their day of trade at 8 a.m. and closes at 3 p.m. There you have it. Let's delve into the market business, and we will start off this time with South Africa in Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Now, Johannesburg Stock Exchange has 422 listings, and amongst these, on the first weekday of trading, that was yesterday, at least over 312 of the Johannesburg listed equities participated in trade on that particular day of trade. Now, the day ended, unfortunately, with 155 gainers and 147 losers on the market, with Kibo Energy leading the gainers at a 50% appreciation in price. Now, Kibo Energies at least added a value of 0.01, actually dropped off at least a 0.01 South African rand on their price, closing off the day at 0.02 South African rand after a 33.33% depreciation in their price. Now, Kibo Energy is a multi-asset company that is engaged in the business of the development and, of course, operation of coal, thermal coal power projects in Mozambique, Botswana, and Tanzania as well. The company is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, but also cross-listed on the London Stock Exchange in UK, as well as the OTEX Exchange on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The company currently is incorporated and headquartered in Galway in South Africa, and of course is operating in the sub-Saharan African countries to ensure that there is availability of power in these countries. Currently, Kibo Energy is valued at least about 130 billion, representing 0.0006% of the entire market capitalization in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. That is Kibo Energy. Now, yesterday, we had about 35,113 South African rand that was traded, amount of value that was traded on 1.17 million shares that were recorded for the day. The current price of 0.02 South African rand is as a result of the last weekday of trading on Friday, where the company at least had a loss of 0.02 South African rand on their market price. However, currently, when you look at their participation in the markets, they're the 37th most traded on stock on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange over the past 3 months. And in this particular period, we're looking at a total value of 145 million shares that has been recorded in a couple of deals on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Besides Kibo Energy, we did have other stocks that did actually gain, including Delta Property Fund at least about 15.79%, and Labat Africa at least at 14.9% appreciation in price, whereas the Grand Parade Investments at least added 10.85%. And on the losing side, we had Ashon coming at the bottom of the losers there on the South African markets, depreciating by at least 15.19%, depreciating to at least a value of 2.52 South African rand per share on the South African market. Regarding the performance of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange indices, the benchmark index, that's the J203, that tracks the top 200 companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, at least depreciated by at least about 79 points and closed off the day at 76,936 points on Monday. Johannesburg Stock Exchange continues to be the largest and busiest stock exchange within Africa. And when you look at the continent currently in terms of the business that's happening in the financial markets, they are the leading in terms of diversification of products as well as in terms of customer engagement. When you look at their customer engagement, it's quite high, and quite a number of foreign investors have also been able to get into their market. So you'll be able to find a lot really when you get to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Johannesburg is also big on crypto. It's also big on development properties as well as real estate if you want to invest within the country. Away from South Africa, let's get to the western part of Africa and start off with Nigeria. Now, Nigeria Stock Exchange is also another very, very busy stock exchange within Africa. Currently, the company has at least close to 156 companies that are listed on the main board and the alternative market segment of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Well, on Monday, at least closing the day, the last weekday, we had at least 574 million rand, whereas a million liras that closed the day with, of course, about 6.05 billion. And this is about, close to one of the biggest days of trading when you compare, of course, with the previous days in Nigeria. Now, the current market capitalization of Nigeria Stock Exchange is 30.5 trillion. And currently, looking at the biggest participants in the day, we had 120 Nigerian Stock Exchange listings out of 156 do actually participate in their trade, ending the day with 33 gainers and at least over 17 losers on the market. NEM Insurance Company came in as the biggest gainer there with a gain of 10% and closing off the day with an appreciation of close at least to 6.05 Nigerian Naira per share. That was closing the day. Now let's have a look at a deeper insight in NEM Insurance Company. Now this is a company that was listed on the 5th of September 1990. You can imagine way back in 1990 we had the Nigerian Stock Exchange listing already companies. Now we have at least about, let's say, 30.3 billion Nigerian Naira that is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange on behalf of NEM Insurance Company. Yesterday, we had 0.55 Nigerian Naira added to their price and closing the day with 6.05 Nigerian Naira. The company appreciated at least by 0.1%, 10.1% rather in value. The current values here, we seem to have at least 70 deals on the company and about 980,473 traded shares at a value of 5.93 million Naira. That is now currently driving the market towards about 30.3 billion of the Nigerian Naira that is represented by NEM Insurance. Now, NEM's past performance has been quite good, especially weekly and monthly performances. Weekly, they have gained 21%, and in a 4 weeks' time or 1 month, at least 34.4% has been added on their value as a company. That is at Nigeria Stock Exchange. In the last 3 months as well, they have gained at least 47.6%. You can compare NEM shares company with, for example, Umeme here on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Quite a lot of value in a very limited amount of time and a lot of impact when it comes to movement within the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That is NEM Insurance Company for you there for keeps. Now, away from NEM Insurance Company, we did have Omatech Ventures as well. Omatech Ventures added 10% as well, and the Golden Business, the Golden Brewery, that is the Guinness breweries there in Nigeria, also added 9.88%, whereas Champs added at least 9.52% on their value. On the losing side, corn oil, unfortunately, came out last with an end of day price depreciation of close to about, 9.95%. And that was after closing the day at 71.95 Nigerian Nairas. Associated Bus Company, another big company there in Nigeria, lost 9.3%, whereas the Sovereign Trust Insurance at least lost 9.09%, and the Sunu Assurances Nigeria at least lost 8.51%, whereas the FCMB Group recorded the highest volume of at least about 205 million naira. Access Holdings at least also had 40.1 million shares, and Japol Gold and Ventures added at least 37.8 million shares to their traded volume yesterday. Fidelity Bank at least added 33.2 million to the participation in trade on Monday. Regarding the performance of the benchmark index in Nigeria, the Nigeria Stock Exchange All Share Index at least paired or lost 25.62 points, down to close to 55,930 points, representing a 1-week gain of 0.2% and a 4-week gain of 7.23%, whereas the overall year-to-date gain is now at 9.13%. Mind you, Nigeria Stock Exchange is amongst the top 10 stock exchanges. Via what? Via volume, volumes traded, via the market size, and of course that involves the number of traders, people that are trading in the market. Comparing them to Uganda, honestly, is very it's something incomparable, because in Uganda we have at least about 60,000 or so investors. In Kenya here we have about over 2 million investors. So you're talking about a market that has over close to about maybe 30 or so million investors within the Nigerian market. So it's quite a big market, and quite something you can bank on if I told you an investor within the African continent as well. Moving on, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange at least had 5,677 points that was added to their benchmark index, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange Index. However, Zimbabwe currently has close to about 50 listings on the main board. And when you look at the Monday trade, at least 34 of these listings traded on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange last Monday, ending the day with 27 gainers and close to 4 losers. FBC Holdings led the gainers with a 15% share price appreciation, closing of the day at 326.5 Zimbabwe dollars. Now, this the FBC Holdings Limited company is an investment holding company that is, of course, a part of the FBC group, and represents a diverse a diverse couple of financial institutions that span commercial banks, a building society, reinsurance companies, and stock broking unit. The group is part of the wide national network of offices. FBC currently is the 12th most valuable stock out of the 50 stocks on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and currently has a market capitalization of 240 billion on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and represents about 1.52% of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Yesterday, they had 4,400 shares traded, and closed the day with 1.57 million that was traded, and about 240 billion is their current market capitalization as well. Apart from the FBC Holdings company, we did have CFI Holdings at least at 15%. This is another interesting company on Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. For those of you who want to explore, CFI Holdings has its roots in the Farmers Cooperative Society that was formed in the 1908, and with the principal objective of marketing maize back then. However, following the acquisition of the Farmers Cooperative Society, the cooperative evolved over the years into one of the leading agro-based industrial holding companies in Zimbabwe, and currently is actually one of the biggest agro-based holding company within the country rather. Now, the CFI holding company has currently 179 billion worth of market capitalization on Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and represents about 1.13% of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange equity market there. At least 1,685,000 was their closing price yesterday, with a 219 appreciation. Zimbabwe is one of those companies, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is one of those exchanges that kind of surprise you, because they are in an economy where you have very high inflation, very low investment, but they're doing quite well as per the figures. The figures portray very, very good performances, and you should go check them out. However, of course, you must go in knowing the exact challenges that the country faces, including a very high inflation, hyperinflation of over about 300%. But still, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is one of those most highly commendable stock exchanges within Africa. African distillers added 15%, and part of the gainers, and First Mutual Properties added at least that 14.93% on their value. At the moment, the losers included Edgar's Stores that came out last, with an end-of-day price depreciation of 7.5%, closing off the day at least 80 shillings. And the Delta Corporation lost 1.93%, whereas Zimplo Holdings lost 0.04%. Tangada Tea Company lost 0%, whereas the biggest holding company for the day was Masimba Holdings, recording the highest volume at 2.42 million shares that were traded. That's it from the rest of Africa. Let's come back to East Africa, and let's look at the Uganda Securities Exchange. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get hold of the data yet, but looking at the Uganda Securities Exchange, some of the stories coming up is that Wumeme was the biggest trader the last weekday we had of trading at over 6,400 traded shares. But also, one of the things to note is that the National Insurance Corporation released their financial results. You can find these on the website of the Uganda Securities Exchange at www.ust.org. And last year, NIC did not issue a dividend. However, they issued a bonus, or what we call a rights issue, where they gave out extra shares for their shareholders at no cost. This year, we don't know yet. We're here to look at the financial statements, but we definitely expect something from National Insurance Corporation. It's one of those companies that are dedicated to their shareholders, very dedicated, always giving out something. At least if it's not a dividend, last year they were able to give out a bonus issue, which is quite something good for the shareholders. The company price currently is at, the NIC company currently holds a value of at least 5.0 Ugandan shillings per share. Let's also talk about other companies. British American Tobacco Uganda is at 15,000 Ugandan shillings. The Bank of Baroda Uganda stock has still remained stagnant at 14 shillings. Remember last Monday, on the 7th of June, the company was able to also issue a rights issue. Now, a rights issue is not a bonus issue, because a bonus issue is something that comes at no cost to the shareholder. But a rights issue is an issue of extra shares only to the current shareholders, but at a cost. This is what Bank of Baroda Uganda stock did yesterday, rather last week on Monday. Now, why did they do this? They were in a spot where, of course, due to the new requirements by the Finance Ministry, by Bank of Uganda, basically, but of course announced by Minister of Finance, Honorable Matia Kasaija, all commercial banks in Uganda are required to have a minimum capital requirement of at least 150 billion Ugandan shillings. This is up from last year's 25 billion shillings, meaning Bank of Baroda needed to up its game or pull up its socks if it was to remain in business by the effect of this law in 2024. Now, Bank of Baroda looked elsewhere and probably wasn't able to find a solution. And so it went back to their shareholders and said, hey, we can give you more shares at a subsidized price. And they issued, of course, with authorization from Capital Markets Authority, with guidance of and of course, approval of the Uganda Securities Exchange and approval of the Capital Markets Authority as well, that they would issue extra 1.25 billion shares. Now, these shares were issued at 10 shillings per share. And that means that they were able to actually get to the 125 billion mark. So they get the 125 billion, add to the 25 billion. Now we have the 150 billion, meeting the minimum capital requirements by the Bank of Uganda, as per right now, what is in the status quo. However, this comes at a cost, because now the price is lower, because of course these shareholders were able to acquire stock at this price. Actually, they are still being able to acquire this at this price. It means that the trading price has to come down for some time, at least. Now, if I don't know how this is going to go, but if at all the shareholders are willing, they can take back the price up after the bonus issue is done. However, this hasn't been able to be noticed or realized yet. And currently, the company's stock is at 14 Ugandan shillings per share. And in terms of trade, they are the fourth most traded on stock currently within the Uganda Securities Exchange, and have a total volume of at least 9.36 million that has been traded within the last 3 months of trade in Uganda. That's from the 6th of March to the 8th of June 2023. That's it from Bank of Baroda. But elsewhere, news from Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. They haven't also been able to cut the deal with Africa Capital Works, which is a company that, of course, was intending or is intending to buy the Cipla stake within the Cipla Quality Chemicals. Remember, Cipla Quality Chemicals is a company that was formed with an agreement or with holding from the Cipla India and Quality Chemicals in Uganda to form Cipla Quality Chemicals. It is a corporation, kind of. And now Cipla is intending to move out of the company, and Cipla currently holds 51.18% stake in Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. It's the biggest shareholder, basically. So Africa Capital Works started this deal this year to purchase Cipla of the Cipla Quality Chemicals company. And the deal was estimated to take at least a maximum of at least 3 months, from January to 31st of March. That 31st of May, that was unable to be met, and the deadline was pushed to 31st of June with an automatic extension to 31st of July if things don't work out still. Now, the deal is intended to cost about between 93 billion to 104 billion Ugandan shillings, and talks are still going on. No details have been provided on why the extension has been made, but at least what we know is that they are still in negotiations with Cipla India. And that's the news from the Uganda Securities Exchange, basically. But we'll give you more definitely as it unfolds. And that's it. That was our last note for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. For more content on business, please stay tuned. There's a lot more in store for you today. It's a Tuesday, and of course, we are warming up tomorrow for the reading of the Uganda National Budget 2023-2024. It is something that marks the beginning of a new year. Of course, our new year begins on the 1st of July, but of course, it begins with the reading of the national budget, and that precedes the process, of course, of starting another year and starting another financial year with the new budget, and of course projecting for the next budget, which is for the year 2024-2025. So it's quite important for you as a citizen to be part of this. And as a financial markets team here, we would like to say definitely we shall be able to also give you more of what will be in there for us as, of course, financial markets here in Uganda and different financial institutions, how they will be benefiting from that. One of them is going to be domestic borrowing. This year's budget has about 8.6 trillion budgeted, and this is projected to be, of course, obtained from domestic borrowing. What will this mean for the investors? This is a rise from the previous budget of about 8.0 trillion to 8.06 trillion. So it's something that we are looking up to and seeing what that is going to have as an impact, especially on the private sector. Yeah. So stay tuned for that and more. Otex, remember, is the company that brings you this show. And with Otex, you can do something new. All you need to do is to simply dial *292# and follow the prompts to register and be able to start your journey of investment. My name is Anthony Sabale. A very good morning. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye for now.